do we still feel that we have a worm's eye view? How does that mushroom, look at the mushroom. We have to think of what's in the composition. So, because we still see so much of underneath that mushroom, that, where do you feel that your view is, your point of view is? Do you feel it's worm's eye or head on, or can it be maybe a little bit of both happening? Right? You don't have to answer that. You can, like, I want you to think about that when you're writing your paper, okay? Because it just might change the perspective of you and what you're looking at and what you're focusing on, because you don't have to focus on every single nuance on here when you're writing about it. You might describe it, but then you might focus just on the hands and the band-aid. That might be enough. Did you catch that?
Yeah, it's kind of difficult to overcome our point of view.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that we're down here.
Right, looking up. Absolutely. And because she has that mushroom, so much of it visible from the bottom, that mushroom is important, right?
See, the mushroom starts right there.
Right. That's the
left knee.
Yeah. Where the band-aid is.
Yeah.
You know?
Right below
Where the band-aid is. So that mushroom, that's a really, really good observation, Cam, because that mushroom, the stem, does everyone see the stem at the bottom? And what is it growing out of? What color water is that? Right? It's dark, right? So dark colors have a symbolism of negativity or death, right? Because it looks pretty black to me, that color. So if I see black water, I'm gonna write, it's not blue water, right? Blue water gives us a different effect, different feeling than black water. So we've got all this going on with the mushroom. If there's something that you find with that mushroom and that green ooze that's dripping onto her, there's a stain under her eye of that green ooze. So she is connected to that mushroom that's growing out of that black water, where there happens to be like some kind of a creature, some kind of a monster that figure is standing on. So everything is connected in this like, is there some reason to have like a psychedelic experience with this, right? Some of their other paintings is of this same figure, but inside bottles. So there's an element of alcoholism and addiction that does show up in their artwork, okay? That's not to say anything about the artist. It is the character that the artist is portraying to evoke something in you, okay? And what they're dealing with personally when they're creating their artwork. When artists create artwork on self-identity, it's because there is something that they need to continuously work for, and that's how they do it, right? And in so doing, they make connections with like-minded people. So, at the tail end of last semester, who here remembers the hashtag Stop Asian Hate campaign? Lauren was very instrumental in painting a lot of murals for Asian business owners for exactly that subject matter, that subject. And this character still shows up, the colors still show up, the attire that this figure is wearing is a traditional Asian dress, only there's a skeleton on it, right? That skeleton makes you feel off balance because the hips are in this contrapposto pose, kind of like Michelangelo's David is in this contrapposto pose, right? So when the Egyptians, how many of you can conjure up an Egyptian pyramid sculpture or painting, right? And they're like this, are they, right? When I was in school, my teacher said, how many of you stand like this at Starbucks? We don't. We stand like this. Look at Kim. We stand like this. This is a contrapposto pose, which means counterposed. It's another Italian term. The reason so many of these terms are in Italian is because the Italians are the ones who really came up with and perfected the Renaissance movement. And what that was a rebirth of mural art. And they started incorporating math and geometry. Remember when we did that focal point with we did that the spokes of the wheels, right? That came out like this, and then you have the floor. You have have a ceiling, you have a wall, you can taper down the windows, you have the main window in the back, right? So things like that. That's what, you should go just move your car. So you don't have to go so far. Did you have to go there anyway?
We're gonna be in this area, right here.
No, we're gonna be on Broadway next. But go do it right
We're
now.
gonna get further and further away from my car now.
What time is it?
6:40.
Oh, you're fine. You have 45
I got another
minutes.
hour.
Yeah, you're fine. So that's why they're Italian terms, right? Because the Italian Renaissance, they're the ones who like discovered all this stuff. So we still use those terms.
Is that a self-portrait?
No, it's not it's self-identity.
Like that?
It's self-identity. This one's spray paint, yes. Yeah, this one's spray paint on wall. Yeah. But now let's take a notice of the hips, right? That Lauren has painted onto the dress. Do those hips look balanced, or do they look like they're in the contrapposto pose?
For me, it's also look different. So I think she's kind of like doing this. This one looks like it's bending a little bit.
So she's really shifted, right? So when you're like this, you're not stable. If somebody were to come and push me right now, I would just fall backwards. So this is not a stable pose, which again, we can put that onto the character of this figure in the composition, right? So we've got a sense of instability, we've got a sense of, psychotropics, we have a sense of maybe pain or something of morphing, those hands morphing. Even the fact that this figure is like tight into this wall, right? So with that shift in the dress, in that skeleton that has been painted on the dress, we get to see that the hips are not in a stable form, or a bit on the contrapposto side. And then we start working our way up, because remember, this one is really tall and linear. So we are literally working our way up. When you describe it, if you choose this one, you can describe it bottom to top, you can describe it top to bottom, you can describe it however you feel you need to get there, you can, right? But as I'm describing it to you, I'm going bottom up because that's really how we're looking at this thing.
What do you see with the eye patch over the right eye?
So the eye patch, first of all, that child over there, you can't tell anymore because it's too dark, but if you look at the eyeball of the child over there, we did it yesterday in my 420 class, and you can look over there and you can see that that kid is looking at us. But when you look at the one Lauren painted, that person is looking down, right? So now that's going to set up your emotional state. If you're looking down, what does that say about you or that figure, right? The eye patch can have many different meanings, and this is yours to come up with. I can't give you that meaning, but for me, that eye patch means that the person there is not seeing the whole picture, and you, as the viewer, do not get to see both of the eyes. You do not get to see the whole picture either, because this figure is misunderstood, misgendered, right?
Misgender.
So Lauren is non-binary. So if you end up writing about Lauren, please use they, them pronouns, not she, her. So Lauren is non-binary, and that is also something that the artist has represented in their work, right? So again, not feeling part of the majority.
Well, I don't necessarily see that.
No, you don't see that with this figure here. This is more about Asian identity. But if you, what colors are in the background?
Pink,
And
green, or blue.
it's blue. So you've got gender in the background. Those are the colors of the transgender
She
flag.
doesn't really look Asian, except in the eyes.
The eye and the dress.
She's
That's
got
it.
Western colors.
But because the artist is Asian American, right? But there's a traditional Chinese dress and a traditional Chinese hairstyle of a young girl. So there are those elements that are traditional, okay? So Anyone have any questions, comments, concerns?